Okay, well, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. You should have all gotten minutes in the email from Sandy.
Thank you. All right, thanks.
Does anyone have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
Got a copy.
Have a motion on approval?
I make a motion, approve the minutes.
Okay, you got Mike, a motion to approve the minutes, a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, so the approval of minutes, passed.
Didn't Jamie get one?
Okay, those wishing to address the Airport Advisory Commission need not request permission in advance. Action taken as a result of public comments will be limited to directing staff to study the matter or rescheduling the matter for consideration and decision at a later time pursuant to ARS 38-431 et al. Now, if it relates to something on the agenda, that's different. We'll take the comments. First, we'll have a staff report from Steve Johnston, our airport manager.
Point of order.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, could we have a call to order and roll call?
Oh, yes, we could do that. Thank you.
Sure.
I didn't have my glasses on yet. You want to call the roll?
Carl Hayes,
Here.
Scott Brackett,
Here.
Dave Emspoker,
Here.
Mike Finnegan,
Here.
Tim Gerlich,
Here.
John Stutzman,
Here.
and we have a quorum.
All right, thank you. Okay, now staff report.
Okay, same format as in the past, based and stored aircraft at the airport, or based aircraft, 93 plus or minus, stored aircraft 207. In aviation fuel sales, you'll note that we've listed everything out July through October. October was a total of 22,220 gallons. Avgas was 431 gallons. I'm sorry, 4,431 gallons. Jet A was 18,788. You'll note the budget numbers there, approved budget, nothing's changed there. Again, on the financial update, you will note that we have August through October there for your comparison. October revenues were $103,581. Revenues to date this year, $418,189. Airport expenses in October as well, $177,769, and airport expenses to date, $354,186. In regards to FAA and ADOT coordination, the supplemental project did go in about 2 weeks ago to the FAA. We will not hear anything back from them probably until March. That's being handled by headquarters back in DC. So very little information is available with the Phoenix ADO on that. The master plan grant, the notice to proceed has been issued. The consultants and staff have had their first meeting, draft list of participants for the committee, 20 different folks. has been submitted, and that's going up the review chain here at the city. So shortly, hopefully, we'll have that finalized. The goal, though I'm not sure we'll meet it, is to have the initial meeting the first or second week, actually the second week of December of that group. Part 139, inactive status, waiting on the last piece of documentation, then that will be submitted to the FAA. Inspection and deficiency, we'll talk about that in a moment, but we're not expecting a re-inspection of the adjustments we've made out at the field based on that FAA inspection a few months ago. The CADX submittal process for the runway 321 project, that has been approved by the FAA, so we're good to go there. Airport development and maintenance projects, the Ross site, we're expecting that they will start doing their core samples this January, so it'll begin this next year. They'll be using one of our hangars to store that, all of those 141 core samples. So that'll start beginning of next year. The runway, as far as projects go, the striping is complete as of last week, and the crack sealing was complete as of the week prior to that. So we're good on runway 321. Apron we're still working on, getting some additional quotes for that. Striping was completed last week. I believe it was Thursday afternoon. Gates we haven't moved on yet, and I believe the terminal plans are imminent. We keep hearing each week, but last week, again, we're supposed to be in hand shortly. Hangar occupancy, 38 at present. There's one that's vacant, but I believe paperwork's been signed, and that person will be coming in shortly. Tie downs are full. That's 10. No vacancies there. Current wait list, executive hangars, I believe it's 5 on the wait list. T hangars, nothing there, and covered tie downs, 5. Airport leasing and development update, hangar development. We had some property, a lease be assigned about 2 weeks ago, and so the project that you all recall with an environmental for a new hangar, that's gone away because that issue was taken care of by a lease transfer out there at the airport in regards to a hangar. The 3,600 square foot hangar that was proposed, that's gone away at the moment, though there have been quite a number of people meeting with me that are interested in putting hangars up. The taxi through covered parking area, we'll be working that in regards to possible locations and look into funding opportunities for that. I don't believe there's any grants that are available for that, but we'll be looking into that in some detail. Regular, you'll note in the last 2 weeks that there's a regular cycle of litter pickup and such on Mojave Drive, and we'll continue that. Some days are better than others, as you all know. The wind starts to blow, and it's amazing what comes up out there, but we're working that. On the flight line, we are looking into, well, as we speak, we're out there with a sweeper on the directions get all messed up here. On the end portion of Flightline Drive, just off the pavement, attempting to sort of clean that up with the sweeper to see if we can't make it a little nicer. We also have a request into Public Works in regards to is there something we can do to basically knock the gravel down short of paving and make that area to where it can be utilized as a taxiway as it has been in the past. Right now, if you have a constant speed prop, you're going to really ding it up out in that area. So we're doing a little experimentation with the sweeper right now, see what that gets us. But we also will have the city come out and take a look at that. In regards to airport business and commercial activity, the tear-down operators, nothing new there. Flight training operations, again, that's one of the reasons we're doing the little experimentation with the sweeper as we speak. There's some interest there. We're also, and I think some of you are aware of this, looking into getting a fair market value appraisal from an appraiser that does airports. And that would be looking at other similar airports in state, not out of state. And based on that, looking at some of the leases we currently have on site, maybe 5 other airports in state, doing a comparison and coming up with a bona fide value for that. So that's in the works. Airport events, again, we had the annual EAA Young Eagles flights out at the airport a couple weeks ago, very successful. And in regards to airport land use and proposed zoning evaluations, no cases were reviewed by staff since our last meeting. And of course, we've reached out to the county in regards to the roads and assisting us in maintaining those out at the airport. And again, on noise complaints, we haven't had any that I'm aware of since our last meeting.
Anybody have any questions?
I have a question. On the fair market evaluation, are we going to get to see before he spends a ton of time what airports or facilities he's evaluating so we can kind of take a look and get our eyeballs on it? That's what I would like anyhow, just to know what he's picking out.
Would you all consider maybe a subcommittee working with me in regards to that? And I could get some similar airports. Well, actually, the appraiser will get similar airports, but make sure that we're not comparing apples to oranges, say Deer Valley to Kingman.
We, in our report for later on today, found several other airports that have leased property. Probably not as many as he's going to find.
Could we use just the subcommittee for the leases and fees as an existing one and just dovetail that in there would probably be the easiest in my book?
Well, I think one of the points is that to be safe, we should have an appraisal rather than, what we did.
Right.
Hangar rents are a little different because there's so much of that is what's the market. Even though an appraisal, is valid, it's just more valid on dirt because that's a long-term lease, not a short-term rent. And my suspicion is that if we got a draft copy and you had a problem with.
Correct. Yeah, that would be fine.
I mean, if an appraiser really does his job, he should consider everything you're talking about and adjust accordingly. If he's just trying to make it look good for somebody, then, he can fudge it. But he does sign his name and has to stand behind that. So I'm not sure what would be best, but I would have I think it'd be fine to have some people working with the appraiser to review, what he's going to lay out as far as.
Yeah, that's all I was wondering. I'm not trying to,
Would you like to carry on with that?
Our committee would be glad to assist.
Okay, let's do that. We don't have to make an agenda item for that, do we, Gary? It's a continuation of an existing committee on the same subject. We don't. Okay. 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 And any other issues?
I just wondered what criteria they would use to say, compare, an airport that's comparable to Mojave County. Would it be population or what?
have to ask them probably.
All of that should play. I mean, they're all items of, you have a cost basis, a market basis, and a survey kind of basis. So it's and sometimes those are rather separated in value. So he has to split the difference somehow.
How many dollar stores, et cetera?
Yeah, that's, or the, yeah, right, not a bad example.
I'm curious
But-
as to how much this survey will cost, or the appraisal will cost.
I have not contacted the appraiser yet. In the past, at another airport in county, I believe the last time it was done back in 2014, it was roughly, if I recall correctly, somewhere between $3,000 to $5,000.
I think it's worth it.
Yeah.
Since it's under the limit, it doesn't have to go to council. To come here is not a bad idea, and I don't have a problem with, we put it on our agenda when we have a specific guy who wants to, gonna do a sort of specific job for a price, rather than try and put it on now and,
I was just curious as to how much it would cost. I think it's a good idea.
well, and he said, we don't know for sure, but we could bring it to the commission before the contract signed. And the same thing goes for surveying. That'll cost a little bit. When they did all that surveying in the industrial park a few years ago, they didn't do the air side. So there is no survey findable for the lots out there that are undeveloped, and probably nothing for the other lots. The contract was signed on from this fence post to that fence post.
Now, does the city have a surveyor?
Say,
Surveyor? Does the city have a land surveyor?
at times they have, I don't know what they have right now.
I believe engineering does, but I'll have to double check on that. I know they hired a new one that.
Okay.
There are points nearby, so it's not like they're starting from scratch, but we definitely need that. It should have been in the contracts previously, but it wasn't. So that's, again, that should be cheaper, but we can, it shouldn't have to go here, but I'd rather discuss it and make sure everybody's happy that we're doing that. But I don't know how you can make a real lease for somebody that's gonna come in and invest a bunch of money and build buildings, and he doesn't have stakes on where he can build. They may not issue a permit anymore. The county is pretty sticky on that.
I have a question for Mr. Johnson. Have you had a chance to either look or think about an action plan for maybe doing some improvements on the gates, the entry points onto the airfield? It's been discussed in the past. Some of them are in pretty poor condition. The parts where you would drive up to a vehicle gate to enter the airfield. I don't know if you've had time to have a look at those.
No, that'll be a priority. I have experienced what you're speaking of, yes, and they do need work. But no, that'll be a priority.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much.
Certainly.
Okay, Gary? Business staff, park staff report. I guess Bennett's somewhere else today.
Bennett, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Yeah, Bennett is, I actually let Bennett take care of CAMA. It seemed it was kind of stupid for me to run to the airport and him to run here, so he's got the CAMA meeting starting at 1 o'clock, so he's taking care of that one.
Scott and I do too, so.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So in answer, Mr. Gerlach, to your question there on the, there is $50,000 budgeted this year for one of the gate replacements. I believe it's 9, which is the most used gate. But Steve and I have had this talk because I think in order to facilitate moving ahead on the gates, we're going to really have to have a good plan in how are they all going to be secured? What kind of security coding? What are we going to do to tie them all together? So, but there is money set aside for at least a major revamp on that gate.
Okay, and in particular, the gates do need attention, but the actual surface
Right.
and approaches to those keypads that are current, some are fairly hazardous to your vehicle. I actually, some time ago, went around and photographed each of the gateways, and some are better than others, but there are some that are really in poor shape, and you have to be very careful how you even approach them with your vehicle not to damage a tire.
I know it's a priority for certainly, and Steve and I have talked about this, but again, you know, we're kind of dealing with the sins of our fathers, so please give us a little time, okay? But it's on the list. We're still following your original list, by the way, that the advisory group gave when we first started, so. Okay, I'll give you a brief update on the ED side, or the industrial park. And I'm also going to cover a little bit of things that is happening in economic development overall. One of the things we thought we'd have last week from Chabin Concepts, which is the company that's going to do us our economic development strategy, is that we would have the, the draft here last week. Unfortunately, these folks all live in the fire zone. 2 of them had to evacuate their homes, and 1 of them was waiting. So they will have it this week. We just sent them our thoughts and prayers, because they were right there where the fire was coming through. So they live in Chico, so right up around that area. The Economic Development website, we've signed the contract with a company called Grancus, and the GIS planning agreements. They're all in place now. And actually, we're going to have a kickoff meeting. It's either today or tomorrow. Tuesday or Wednesday with IT, and get all of that rolling. So everything is moving along on the Economic Development website there. The opportunity zones, Bennett and I have been working together. We are been charged with, by January 1st, having a opportunity zone plan in place. And so this really would create a strategy for people who have that wonderful thing of capital gains that they can allow to be invested. And the fortunate part for us is that when we submitted this, the KA was still in place, and so Bennett and I both worked with Bob, and we made sure we submitted a strong case to the governor. And luckily, that all came for the airport, all fell in that opportunity zone. So that was really a blessing to us, and also south of town. It kind of skirts its way through Kingman in a funny way, but it's beneficial. So we've already had a couple of meetings with some the brokerage firms that handle this stuff, and so now we're working through that planning part of it there. So on the streets, I'm happy to say that we had a couple of great meetings with Public Works from the city and the county regarding the roads. And I think you guys, I think we're developing a good relationship. And so we're doing homework on our side and improving what the roads need and what has been done. And the county folks, to this point, it's been very cooperative. So I see some good things happening. I see a lot of emails going back and forth on the road work now. So I'm excited about that. I think we've really stressed to the county, everything good that happens at that airport benefits this county over and over and over again. Yeah, I mean, we're all sitting on probably the best tax base the county has right there. So why not put some money back in? So we'll certainly keep you posted on that. We put up our first for sale sign out there on the 127 acres that we have available. And then I also want to thank Paul Gaines. I guess he took Steve and Bennett, and they did some marketing pictures for the website, and that's very helpful. We also met with Kingman Air Service to take some pictures, and we're also going to be reaching out both to the aviation side and to the business park side for testimonials and stuff. All this to enhance, what we're going to be doing on the website. Last Friday or Thursday, Bennett and I attended the 43rd Annual Alliance Bank Economic Outlook in Flagstaff. This is, as I said, their 43rd year. The optimism that came out of this one is that they don't see a recession looming, okay? And they also have a national keynote speaker there. What they're really thinking about is, the China trade agreement is still kind of sticky, but they think the Fed is also going to stay on top of it. What the economists worry about the most is what's happening in the rest of the world. That can be the drag on our stuff. But where we're at now, based on everything they said, we are the economy that's cooking. So it looks pretty good. It was kind of interesting because there was tendency with the speaker who was from CNBC. There was I'd have to say a little leaning to the left. How's that? Did I put it nicely? So it was interesting. I think here we are in some great times. And so it was just something I hadn't heard before. I had attended this conference one time when it was during the recession, and that was about the saddest looking bunch of people you ever want to hear, because we went for 3 years with nothing but, blues, gloom and doom, which it was. So, okay, additional business directional signs have been ordered and will be installed on Interstate Way. So we will continue to make sure that we upgrade those. And as Steve mentioned, one of the really big things with me is keeping that Mojave Drive looking good. So we have a set pattern now for looking at the garbage, but we also meet with our friends from the Styrofoam company because he has the one product that seems to launch the most. And so, but we even get some scrapping from some out of the bins and stuff, but we're going to stay on top of that. Bennett and I have been working with now, it's actually a total of between 4 and 5 companies that are really excited. In fact, is one of the things that we'll be doing right now is I'll be working with the Kaufman and Associates on the burn pit on that 16 acres right there by Love's. We have a client very interested in that property, so we're going to have to move ahead. The benefit to us with Kaufman is they've already given me back the workup for what it's going to cost to evaluate the site as far as the cleanup, and then we'll address the cleanup piece. But either way, we're going to proceed. We just have to get that pit taken care of. And so hopefully the migration is minimal, you know, with what was in there, which was mainly burned up bladders and stuff from the old 17s, and an awful lot of windshield glass for some reason, but it's both in the pit. So also we have gotten, we asked Kaufman to assist us on the, helping us with the release of the additional 1,400 acres. This company they really react quickly. And so they gave us about a 10-part approach that it would take for the release. And so Steve and I just talked on last Friday about the phase 1 and 2. And so I'm giving them the go-ahead to give us a price on phase 1 and 2, which will start the process. So we'll actually be walking lockstep with the master plan. But maybe we can make it happen a little bit quicker. But it was very thorough, and I was really happy to get that going. The other thing that I wanted to share with you, we did a tour last week with Gary Knight, and he is ADOT Commissioner from District 3, and so he did a lot of touring around town. His primary interest certainly was rattlesnake, and he came then to the airport, and so we did a handoff, and Steve and I took him through all the airport facility, and then we did a very detailed look at the business park. And he came away with the one thing, and he said, now I really understand why it's so important to you guys to have that alternate access to that airport. And I said it's one of the keys to the future. I mean, the question's going to get asked more and more as we grow and companies come in. So also happy to say that we were able to help him with some information for his town of Yuma, because he is also the deputy mayor down there. So, you know, that's nice when you can help somebody like that who maybe can certainly help you in the long run. An update quick on the tower. In December, we will have a draft. They'll be looking for our input, and then in January and February, we will see the final on what their recommendations will be to making sure that tower is safe and for whatever future use. The big thing in December is they're going to be asking us, what kind of uses do we see for the tower? So I'll certainly be coming back to you guys to talk about it. You know, I have always seen it from a historical standpoint that maybe we dress it up with a mannequin, we do some voice-activated speaking, things like that. But so, and then on the terminal, there was a little bit of a delay, but I have to tell you it was a good delay. We had a local professional engineer volunteer for free all of his services related to anything for engineering for that building, because he is so excited about the World War II concept. And so I just talked to the architect folks last week. I think he submitted his stuff now, and that piece of it's done. So we're pushing them pretty hard to get that going. So as you saw, the new roof went on. That was actually the architect's recommendation on the color, kind of go with the World War II theme, that hunter green and stuff. And we've also, again, talked with the restaurant owner. They're excited. They're more than willing to consider what do they need to do to kind of blend in. And I understand today there's already some exciting things happening with some stuff on the radio and things like that in the cafe. So as you saw, we did the rollover sign. Maybe it won't stop them all, but when we were going up with to the meeting up in Flagstaff, Jaime from JM Eagle rode up with us, and so he talked about again how that corner is tough when you come out of the park. He said it's not so much for the seasoned drivers who've been into our park, But he said it's always that new guy that doesn't quite understand that center of gravity shift when you head over 66 there. So, but he said in his firm, they talk about it all the time. If the driver says he's new, we talk about it. But he did say, and thanked us personally for that rollover sign. So, and I certainly hope that's something that'll help. On the other thing, town-wise, I have Bennett, one of the things I asked him to do was to continue working with those things that he was doing at the county. I didn't want to see the ball drop, because anything that happens in the economic development side in or close to Kingman is certainly going to benefit us. So he's now working with Scott Industries to facilitate their ribbon cutting come up on their new facility south of town. And they're also working with Bulk Industries, because that'll create some additional space at the airport, which is something we need right now. And as I said earlier, we're both working with some 4 other companies. So we did have from the Economic Development Group, we gave Deborah Sixa a tour of the industrial park in the airport last week. She's thankful. And I think, as with all tours, we bring them out and we show them what you guys deal with and what business is all about out there. And they come away with a whole new understanding, because I think for a lot of folks, they just don't get out there and they don't understand what we're talking about. So it went over very well. And so we'll continue to do that and offer that up. And with that, I'll open it up to any questions the commission may have.
Questions?
Thank you.
I have one.
Hey, Carl, I knew it.
Anything happening yet on trying to decide what kind of tree or ornamental we should be planting at the airport that's going to be maintenance low and last, and because I don't know what it is.
Cactus.
Cactus. Yeah, metal ones.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's a good question, and no, we have not on that. But one thing I'd like to do is, we have on the city staff a very talented individual by the name of Guy Reynolds. And Guy is actually an award-winning landscaper. And so I think that's a question we'd like to pose to him, because we are going to start down Mojave Drive now, Carl, and go like probably about in, block sections or whatever, restore all the piping and get all the plumbing back into shape too.
Well, we've lost so many trees and others
Yeah.
that are on their way that it makes me think that, we didn't make conceivably, if they've been handled right with fertilizer and water, maybe they would be okay, and maybe that's what we need, is to protect the ones that are good and plant some more, but maybe we need a different plant.
Yeah,
And
I think your point's well taken.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Maybe something a little more durable, so more deserty. So
You talked about the 1,400 acres.
yes,
Is that inclusive of the acreage south of the airport?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it runs south and then heads. That road that goes through there would be the Rattlesnake access on that 14. So that was the one good thing about having the ADOT commissioner here, is that we took him out there physically and showed him, because I don't think he was relating how that looked off the highway. You can look back, but when you look at the airport and look out, then you really see it. So the one thing, Commissioner, is the FAA, and I believe I said this before, their comments to us a couple of months ago was, we turned over the old airport, no problem, there was infrastructure in place, but we're not going to get by that easy this time. They want a fairly detailed plan, infrastructure, rail, everything, and so I think that's really important. And one other thing that I mentioned to Consul, Unisource I think it'll be online in April, but that current substation will go from 22 kVA to over 80, and it's now looped and stuff, and so that's about an $8.5 million investment on Unisource's part, but that's really important to all of us. I mean, to you guys and everything, is number one, the reliability, and number two, the redundancy.
A week and a half ago, our chairman and I drove that area, and we were thinking that, and I also saw a interview with the chairman of Boeing over the weekend, and they're selling lots of airplanes. That means that other airplanes are going to be retiring, and if that's the case, possibly Bennett could make a concerted effort to woo other companies or that store aircraft. And it would only cost us a little bit to move the fence out so that their aircraft would be protected. But we could store a whole lot of airplanes out in that area and generate some revenue almost immediately. And then as time goes on, if we can make a better deal selling land or leasing it, we could reduce the number of aircraft that are stored.
We certainly can look at that, sir, yeah.
But it just seems to me that we're already parking large aircraft in the dirt. Why not extend the fences out a little bit and make room for a lot more? And this is a little bit off the subject, but thanks to Commissioner Finnegan, we learned what they are renting land for at Roswell for heavy equipment or heavy aircraft. And we're quite a bit less expensive. So that needs to be advertised.
I think aren't we limited though, to just like 737 capacity, that size of plane? Maybe they can take bigger ones. I don't know. I mean, it's just something I had heard in the past, but.
They can't operate at full weight.
Right.
But to come in here and be worked on or scrapped or parted out, we've got DC-8s and we had a couple of 10-11s in here, pretty good-sized airplanes. And the parcel that he's talking about is from the clear zone for runway 321 west and on the north side of the big drainage ditch. So it's an extension out from the existing, well, like where the compass rose is and the scrapping area. There's a nearly all flat area in there that could be used for that very easily, rather than sold. And one of the things the FAA wants is continuing revenue for the airport.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's possible it could be a dual use. They like the idea of building buildings and leasing the buildings out, industrial buildings. Well, you got to have money to do that. So if we sold a bunch of the stuff on the other side of the drainage, then maybe we had some money to build some buildings next to probably Guardian. It would be the first place, because there are utilities there, but it would be an immediate area that could be used for aircraft storage, whether Cassie was the one that did it or somebody else.
You know, what's interesting is I shared with Steve and the Cassie folks, we had an inquiry from a major film company about another filming out here of an event. And so, yeah, I first made sure we sat down with Cassie and shared it with them, and then certainly with our risk management people. But it is intriguing what those airplanes attract.
Say again?
So what those airplanes being out there attract.
Yes.
And these were actually, this film company was actually referred to us by 2 other airports in California. So that's how I got the call. So it's interesting. So, but we're working it out with Cassie and others. It's still in the very preliminary stages, but, and it's a good one. I mean, it's not somebody at fly-by-nighter. These folks can afford to do what they want to do, so.
Well, there's a different one. There's a local one that we referred to them,
Yeah.
that just wanted to do a crowd people in a passenger airplane, and they just blew them off. Cassie just didn't want to talk to them.
Yeah.
So I don't.
This is a little bit different. This is national. So these are.
Oh.
So, but we'll certainly keep you posted as it moves along. Right now, it's just in the talking stages. So, anything else, commissioners?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, now we've got a report on the remote control aircraft, and I guess you have a PowerPoint presentation, Sam Eakin, is that correct?
Yes.
And for the record, there's a substantial amount of documentation that supports, I guess, what you're going to say in the PowerPoint presentation. We certainly don't have time to do a whole lot, but if you can give us the high points of what your position is on that, we'd sure appreciate it.
All right, do you need me to say my name and everything for the record?
Sam Eakin, you get, so you, no, I guess you're all right.
Okay. The big question is model aircraft actually aircraft? The simple answer is yes, based on the wording from the FAA and other laws. These are actually taken straight from the law, and it's, unmanned aircraft, regardless of whether the operation is for recreational, hobby, business, or commercial purposes, are aircraft within both the definition found in Statute 49 U.S. Code. And the section 40102A6 defines an aircraft as any contrivance invented, used, or designed to navigate or fly in the air. Model aircraft are designed to fly in the air. We're pretty, I think the language is pretty straightforward, that we do fall under aircraft, and we do fall under FAA regulations. Our unmanned aircraft subject to FAA regulations? Yes, all civil aircraft are subject to FAA regulations under the law, and model aircraft do fall under that law. Also, all our aircraft must be registered. We have a registration number that has to be on all the model aircraft. Now, how that works, let's see if I got a slide of that, and I don't have a slide of that, is they give the person as a hobbyist a card. You go and apply for it, you pay them $5, they give you a card. It has your FAA number on it. And that FAA number has to go on each one of your aircraft to be legal. For 107, they consider our commercial planes different, and each plane has its own individual number, just like a regular airplane does a tail number. I've also been asked, has model aircraft been allowed to operate on airport properties and other places? Yes, we have found a list of 115 from the AMA. Now, we know this list was done in 2014, and we know it's incomplete. For one, we're not even on the list, so if we're not on the list, we know it's not a complete list. But 115 airport places is a pretty good start. The other thing that we've found by contacting some of these on this list is most, if not all, have verbal agreements with their airports. So they're pretty much in the same boat as the Kingman modelers. And it seems to be pretty standard. Now with the new FAA regulations coming down, the new 2018 Reauthorization Act, many of these clubs are in talks with their local airport about an agreement. And it's a 50-50 shot whether they put this in this new, because they got the regulations and the FAA is going to write the rules. And it's a 50-50 shot whether they're going to make us have an agreement with the airport. There's talks that every RC model airport within 5 miles of an airport is going to have a written agreement with their airport. So I think the conclusion we can draw is model aircraft are aircraft defined by the FAA, and they fall under FAA regulations, just like any other aircraft. Also, Kingman is not unique, in having a model airfield by, at, or on airport property. Now, with the agreements and the nonprofit status, and being an aviation activity, the AMA, 969 is pretty much the same as the AMA. And the AMA has had a long-standing written understanding with the EAA. And we're supposed to be working together to promote aviation. Model aircraft, I'd like to also say that model aircraft have been an integral part of aviation since the beginning. When Da Vinci dreamed of flight, he built models and tried to fly them before he tried to fly himself. The Wright brothers built models and flew them before they ever took their first flight. There's been a lot of innovation come from model aircraft. We're moving into a new century where UAS and drones are going to be the future of aviation. And training pilots and getting pilots interested starts with the model aircraft. We also was talking about agreements. Should we continue with the verbal agreement that Kingman modelers had with the KAA? For 26 years, the modelers have had a verbal agreement. It first started with the Mojave County Airport Authority, then went on to the Kingman Airport Authority. Mr. Husband had found 20 years, plus years of paperwork where we had submitted our insurance and named the airport and the city of Kingman on the insurance. So even though we don't have a written agreement, we had a verbal agreement, and there is somewhat of a paper trail. Now, Judge Moss did say that, you know, make a ruling, and I don't know if that ruling applies to the modelers. That's kind of for you guys to decide, to keep all the agreements that they had. Something else that I'd like to talk about is, should we draft a memorandum of understanding? It would be a little stronger to have a memorandum of understanding versus just a handshake. It would, both entities would know what was expected, you know, what the performance was. One of our agreements with the KAA was, we knew the land would be developed at some point in time, and they said, well, you know, we can give you at least 90 days notice. More like we could probably give you a year's notice of when you'd have to vacate. And a memorandum of understanding would just kind of define those parameters of, you know, how long we could stay, you know, when they decide to develop the property, you know, how we have, you know, how long we have to move, you know. Also, any other, you know, we don't fly above 400 feet, which is also in the new FAA regulations. You know, just different parameters and protect both parties. And it's a little stronger than a verbal handshake. The other thing is, should we we could do a lease similar to the EAA, being as we are a aviation-related activity. We promote some of the same things, and we really should be working together. Could we do a lease similar to the EAA? And that's kind of it. Do you guys have any questions for me?
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Thank you for your time and consideration, guys.
Mike, this was your subcommittee, and your name's on the sheet. Your subcommittee concurs with the facts that are in this?
Yes, sir, we do. And I think he covered pretty much everything. In the booklet, the synopsis in the front is much more detailed, but it's basically the same thing. So one of the things that you might want to look at is the pros of having a model airfield on the airport. And there's about 20 items on there that make a lot of sense. I would like to explain one thing in here. On the fourth one, it says it's the first line of defense against potential terror threats. Now, basically, that would mean that somebody comes out there and say, hey, how much of these things How much weight can you carry on them? How far can they fly? How long can they stay in the air? You know, how fast will they go? You know,
I
raises.
don't care about landing,
and
only
they-
taking off.
Exactly, exactly. So I just want to explain that one, because that one had me a little bit confused at first until Sam explained it to me, so. But it's a very comprehensive report, and basically everything in it just points that they should get the same consideration as what the EAA is. But, you know, you might want to table this to give everybody time to read it.
Yeah.
Well, there's obviously a difference of opinion with the one guy with the FAA, because that's where Joe Husband got his information. And Sam, you brought up that Congress passed the regulation, or at least to the FAA, to write the rules for. And those rules could enhance or detract or whatever, could have an impact. Do you have any idea what the time frame is for that?
I do not know. The FAA is writing it, so however long it takes them to write it.
Probably about the time the draw site is done.
Well, it would be nice if that were done, and it would certainly be nice if we had everybody with the FAA that we deal with on the same page. Can you look into that more? Yes. Okay, well, then we don't have to take any action, I guess, as long as it's still hanging, or do you want it, does somebody want to put it in form of a motion that we do something?
I move that we table it until the next meeting.
Second.
That'll give us a chance to read.
Okay.
Yes, I second that.
That's good, so
I second it.
he already did.
Oh, I
You got the motion to table, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, good, so we got everybody on that.
I have a
All
question
right.
regarding this matter, though.
Yes, sir.
We had, I don't recall the date, but we had set a 60-day, there was a motion for a 60-day period of not changing anything.
Well, that still
regarding-
sits there,
Is that
we've just processed the program a little more. I don't think, well, that will take us to the next meeting, that's 60 days.
Fair enough.
So we should at least provide some guidance or preference at that point. Okay, navigation easements for the airport, how's that committee doing?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to plead the fifth on this one. Haven't accomplished anything, haven't had a meeting. I've been out of town a bit, and I wanted to talk to Steve before I started everything and get him the information, and I haven't done that yet. And we've talked, and I'll be with him this week, so I'd like to table that too till the next month.
Okay,
So
then we'll just leave that for an agenda item for the future. Okay, the study of airport rates and charges, and you guys did a lot of work to come up with that. Now, the portion that relates to the bare earth, probably commercial operators, we're going to do an appraisal on and a little more work. And your subcommittee is going to work with the airport manager on that.
correct.
It would seem to me that the same thing could happen with the hangar rep, because you've got some good information. He may have some, I'd love for your subcommittee and our airport manager to come up with a proposal and justification, of course, so we can submit it to the council. Am I correct, Gary, that stuff should go to the council?
It's going to be, wouldn't this be, Commissioner, wouldn't this be, Chairman, on the, when we get the appraisal stuff completed, it'll all tie in together?
Yes, it would, yes.
But yes.
Is the appraisal gonna be on leased land for an extended lease? On
Yes.
Just dirt, basically, correct?
Right.
Bare dirt. Yeah, we're glad to work with you on that. I'd like to discuss this report a little bit. if we
Okay,
can.
but let me ask, Gary, did a decision on how much is going to be charged for the dirt or hangar rents, is that something that goes to council?
You would make your recommendation.
Okay, so that's not a management decision at your level or airport?
I think because of the money involved and stuff, that it would be, I'll make sure I get a clarification from Carl Cooper on that. I'm almost sure that it would go, based on, you would make a recommendation to council.
Wouldn't it be to the manager to help set that? Because, I mean, that just negates kind of where we're headed and what we're doing. I would think that it would be internal on the revenue collection or whatever, unless there's something in the budget that precludes it, but,
This is not a budgetary item. This is just
right, but it would,
blessing the management decision, like buying the.
right, and yes, I would hope it would stick within the management, because now every decision would go to the council and clog that up, and that's what we want to stay away
So I
from.
think maybe the setting of the overall rate, but Councilman Scott, you might jump in here.
You know, I'm not sure. I haven't seen an item like this
Yeah, I
in the
think-
2 years that I've been on council.
Okay, so it hasn't come up this time, okay.
I think we owe you an answer, so let me get with Ron Fogan and Carl, and we'll have that.
Okay, so.
Before you get to your next.
Okay, so no matter what, we're gonna come up with a recommendation. If it stops there, fine. If it goes to the council, yeah, and it's gonna take a little bit of time, on that, but you wanna go ahead?
Yes,
Dave?
be glad to. We surveyed 11 different airports, listing Laughlin Bullhead International, Deer Valley, Falcon Field, Flagstaff, Goodyear, Page, Payson, Prescott, Ryan Field, and Tucson, Sedona, and Chandler. We got a variety of prices and rents for T hangars and for the larger box hangars. Essentially, Flagstaff was charging the most at basically 32 cents a square foot. And surprisingly, I think it was Deer Valley Goodyear was charging the least. And they were, I think, at 16 cents a square foot. And their large box hangars were 13 cents a square foot. Both of those are airports in the Phoenix area. Flagstaff, as we all know, probably has a lot more snow removal to contend with. And I believe, Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, everyone on their staff is a certified firefighter?
Everybody except the airport manager and his assistant, everybody else is a firefighter.
All the worker bees. And so that's a little more, they're probably generating a better salary because of that. The bottom line is, the average cost for a T hanger is 22 cents per square foot, and a box hanger is 24 cents per square foot. Kingman has B and C row hangers listed at $356.37 per month for rent, which works out to be 33 cents per square foot. And the box hangers in row A rent for $551.29 or 31 cents per square foot. The D row hangers are the smaller T hangers, formerly referred to as the bracket hangers, and they rent for $276.70 per square foot or 27 cents, or $276.70 per month or 27 cents per square foot. We were only able to get a little bit of information on large aircraft rental. We got that from Mike Finnegan, Commissioner Finnegan, regarding Roswell, New Mexico, and what they're charging for aircraft under 100,000 pounds is $210, $300 per month for 100 to 200,000 pound aircraft, and over 200,000 pounds, they're charging $420 per month. Kingman receives $122.96 per month for commercial airliners that are driven by prop or turboprop, and 246.29 for jet aircraft regardless of weight and size. So it seems to me that if the city council were willing to reduce the cost of the hangars, which is a very small amount of the income and revenue for the airport, the rental of bare dirt to commercial airliners could more than make up for it if we could entice some other storage of aircraft.
Well, that's very good work. I would like, did you try like Globe or San Manuel or Buckeye or some of them that are a little further out than from Phoenix? See if that made any difference?
We didn't contact Buckeye or Globe. We
Do we
kind
do
of-
that on round two? I mean, because you're gonna have
We
a
can do
appraiser
that
or
on
whatever
round two.
and list the airports. That's something, yeah, I mean.
I mean, we should have plenty of documentation to justify any recommendation we make, but you've certainly got enough data to say the hangars are too expensive and the big airplane is too cheap
Yeah,
Right.
on a market
yeah,
basis.
yeah, on a market basis.
But we can't, if we build the hangars, we can't charge less than what it costs to build them. So that, you know, that's gonna have a bit of a market factor too.
I believe, I'm not positive, but I believe all of the current hangars have already paid for themselves.
I'm sure that's correct. There's no more loans outstanding. Because they were built with bank loans, and they paid off.
Yeah.
The last ones were built 13 years ago, and I think they were a 10-year loan.
10-year finance.
Yeah, so if they paid them off with a bank loan in 10 years, they were charging plenty.
Yeah.
A question that I raised to Steve, and maybe you know something about, Gary, if we do decide to build hangars, can we get any kind of financing through the city to do that as opposed to just going to banks?
I don't know.
That's certainly a question we should look into.
And clearly, there's
I will get with Tina and Finance and see, and get that addressed. I think the one thing that we have to always keep in mind when we're looking at these rents is that, you know, we'll be coming up in a couple of months on our 6 months of revenue versus capital expenditures at the airport. So I think we're probably gonna walk a fine line on how we affect revenues in order to continue, you know, the work we're doing at the airport. But this will certainly help. I mean, this is good seed, and I concur that to give the appraiser, we should look at a wide variety of airports that have all similar experiences, but all different sizes to make sure. But yeah, I think we just want to make sure that when we approach this, is that we think about, you know, where is this money going to go in the future for us, you know, to
I
carry the
couldn't
load.
agree
So-
more. You know, I mean, we got to keep the airport alive no matter what.
But I certainly will talk to Tina on that, how we can do that. It may be able to be done out of capital funding. You know, that could be if there is any surplus there that could be done, so.
We just pay that fund back.
Right,
plus
you would
interest,
just,
yeah.
you know, you would build buildings.
That would
yeah.
be certainly acceptable, yeah. Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Just a comment on that. It seems to me that we're definitely in need of more hangar space, and I think the rents need to be adjusted. But I believe there's more demand compared to the current ratio of the smaller hangars versus the larger hangars. There's a demand for the larger hangars, obviously. They're also a better deal.
We also only have 5.
Right. And I think there needs to be some serious look at how we can expand those facilities and then fill them up, because it's good for the airport and good for the community to build that activity. I know several of us have worked with the manager out of Laughlin Bullhead, and he has us come down there to consult on how he can build general aviation activity. They have some challenges due to the environment down there, that it's a seasonal activity for a lot of GA stuff is they don't want to be there when it's 120 degrees. Kingman doesn't have quite that severe of a climate, and we could definitely, in my opinion, fill a lot more hangars if the rates are competitive, and it will build activity, it'll build fuel sales, and just be a driver of more development for the community if we can engage that. So it's something that really needs to be looked at.
Well, clearly, we've got a waiting list for shade, we've got a waiting list for hangars, and I can't fathom that that would go down if the cost of rental were less. I see that as only increasing.
And additionally, I think the work of everybody represented here from both the city, the airport management team, and the folks sitting up here is that we're making the airport a more desirable place to be. And I would like to continue that by making it more accommodating in every way we can, and having more aircraft hangar space and maybe another set of shaded tie downs is something that needs to really be looked at. And I understand there's budgetary concerns, but we have to do something to keep moving forward. We have the right direction that we're going in now. It's just, this is a building block we need to really be looking at. I appreciate your guys' work getting that information.
We will get information from Globe and Buckeye. Do you have some other airports that you had in mind?
No,
Did
but
try Sierra Vista, and
I'll give you a list.
you'll get,
check with Arizona ADOT and find out if they have any projections for based airplanes in the state down the road, what kind of growth they expect. That's certainly something to put in there. I mean, it may not be accurate, and it may be reflective more of Phoenix than here, but it's a start point. And that, I think they've used to publish that. I don't know if they still do. And, you know, we can look at all of it as it is right now today. That's today's residents and today's airplane owners that live here, or mostly a few from Havasu. But if somebody with an airplane wants to move, they don't come here or anywhere else if they can't get a hangar.
right.
So there's a significant plus for the community to attract higher level residents.
And if I may add, as we go through the master plan, the documentation you're speaking of, it will be done both on a state, a county, and probably a local basis. So that information you're looking for will be generated concurrently in the master plan.
If we could only get it all done yesterday, huh? All right, thank you very much. Okay, on location and time of future meetings, I know we couldn't do this at the airport because of the IT situation, and I don't know if that's changed yet.
No, it has not.
So we'll be here another month anyway. And
It'll be a while. This is set up and it's really difficult even over that wireless connection.
okay,
Do we want to change the time
do
then?
we want to change time? Yeah.
Yes,
What time do you want it to be?
afternoon, let's go 5 or something like that.
Oh, we got staff problem.
About 4.
What's the, if we want to go late, what's the latest for within reason staff time?
Well, that was one of the reasons why we wanted to do the noon thing, because we thought, you all could do lunch, and you're going to have to eat anyway, and then we could just get that done there. I would
have no problem
Chairman Hayes, then maybe 3 o'clock, in order to avoid that, we have, at least under my jurisdiction, I've got a lot of commissions, and we would be pushing staff pretty badly at this particular point. I don't see any staff increasing per se, so.
So to change it to 3 or
I mean,
change it at all?
3, as long as we keep it within the working day, I think that would be all right. 5 o'clock becomes, it's like any of the P and Z or any of the rest of them. I mean, they go on till 8 o'clock at night, and most of the administrative staff that accompany it, they get comp time and overtime sometimes, depending on how we work it. So, and it just gets tough to do the good job we need to do. So.
What's the earliest we could start?
Well, if your meetings are going to run about 2 hours, then I would say 3.
Well, that's the earliest?
No, you mean 7 in the morning you want?
Oh,
Yeah,
in the
yeah, I
morning.
would
The
start
morning.
way in
Oh,
the morning.
we're wide open.
do you spell that?
Tim, do you have any? You're the
No,
other
I'm fine,
one.
I just prefer to do it early or late. Day, the midday is difficult.
Would 3:30 work? Could we, or is that too late?
I'll buy 3. I mean, if 3's the number, then let's be considerate of staff. That's,
Well, one of the things the county does, a lot of their meetings, in fact, is they hold no evening meetings. Their planning and zoning, all of their commissions are held in the morning. They start at 9 o'clock. So, I mean, that, it doesn't, most cities tend to have, the meetings in the evening so that the people can participate, but, we put this all on doing it here, it's all on video, it's all on live stream, so, people they have access to it all the time, so.
do we want to go with 9 o'clock?
3 o'clock.
3 o'clock?
Yeah, 3 would be better, I think.
I agree.
Nobody wants 12?
I move that we change the time of the meetings in the future to 3 PM.
Second.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
The only
Guess it
the only
passed.
bad point is there goes your pizza, so.
We're gonna have to eat lunch on our own, yeah. Okay, so it'll be the, back to we had a holiday interruption. So that will not be true next month, but will be at 3 o'clock. Okay, status report, on the, well, you really gave that, did you not?
There's nothing more I can add.
Okay. Oh, lease terms and conditions. The things that we have to have is how much and what terms and conditions. And we got the other 2 committees going at the last meeting and with good progress. And we've got to do another, I'll call it a standard form contract. There obviously can be some exceptions when there's differences between tenants that require special things. But generally, what can we do? And, the FAA has conditions, obviously, that we have to abide by. I've worked on this a lot. I had put one together with Riley one time. And I know I got the other you guys to volunteer, so I'll take this one. And if anybody has a motion on that, I think we can have that done. Maybe not next month, but probably a draft, and we should be able to give it a final approval in January, where we will probably have the rest of the stuff done too. So at that point, we could be ready to lease some of that ground out there if we've got our aviation business that wants to move in and build a facility. Need a motion.
Well, I'm just curious, does that conflict with the other work that's pending as far as having the value of the land, evaluating that?
No, this has nothing to do with the price.
Right.
This is the terms and conditions. This is, when you pay the rent and what you can do at 10 o'clock in the morning, or, 10 o'clock at night, those kinds of things. And there's similar things in the CCNRs, only it would be aviation more than you don't see much of that in the CCR and ours.
Okay, is theoretically, the motion would be to draft copy of new terms and conditions?
Yes, new terms and conditions, and appoint a chairman.
Have you volunteered for
I
that
volunteered.
position? Okay, I make a motion that we set a subcommittee for that, or just,
I'll work mostly with Steve
okay.
and
So-
Carl Cooper.
Okay, make a motion for Carl Hayes to review the airport lease terms and conditions with the airport manager and city attorney.
Second.
Dave? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that takes care of that one. Any announcers from any of you guys?
Yeah, I'd like to see on the agenda next time an attempt to fill the vacant seat on our commission?
That is in process, as I understand it. Do you know, has any work been done over the council on that?
I did see the, applications. They have not been, I think they were only sent to me as I had requested them, but people can't apply up until until the meeting, you know, a few days prior to the meeting, but when the agenda goes out. So if you know anybody else that is interested in applying, the agenda is not out for the first meeting in December yet, but I can check to see if we can expect that on that agenda. You know, we'd like to get this other seat.
No, that's to start the process, or,
That'd be to approve somebody for the open spot.
okay, can we get the names and at least provide some input to council that this person appears to be qualified from what we know, or we don't know anything, or?
Sure. Janie did send me all of the applications that are still pending, people that are interested in the spot. There's no reason why she can't send them to this commission as well, so you can see them. And then I would encourage you to send an email either to the city manager and ask him to send that out to the entire council, or if you want to email each council member individually, just to let them know what your thoughts are on the candidates, and if you have anyone that you feel would be strong, you're always welcome.
Okay, so you can send those out to all of us? Then, and when do we have to have that information into the city manager?
Well, we don't know when that will be on which council meeting that will be on, so at this point, I don't have a date for you. I can give the information to Janie if I find out that it will be in the first meeting in December. I have it on my notes to ask Ron about that, the city
So
manager.
we want to get your input in as fast as possible. And that should be an individual input.
So we'll have this on our next agenda then?
No, it'll all be done by then.
Oh,
No, you get your input into the city manager,
okay.
and then he's going to submit, taking that into consideration, who's he's recommending. I assume he recommends something to the council, or he just hands it all to the council? Gotcha.
It's part of our packet that we'll see those applications and review them and then choose somebody from there, so.
If I can, that's not the typical protocol. The protocol is the applications ordinarily go to the commission for review. The commission makes a recommendation to council.
I believe we stopped doing it that way.
And then the council approves the recommendation of the commission.
Right, once the council started taking back their role as them being the council's commissions, I believe that the commissioners stopped voting on them, and then it was solely up to the commission. Could be wrong, but I believe that's the way that we are doing it.
That would make sense.
I'll make sure, but I do believe that. That's
Well,
what it
let's do it this way. Let's get our opinions in to the city manager, because we can't lose anything. And if it goes a different way, then we'll have to make a recommendation. No announcements? This is the only one I have. Jeannie, is there another one? Okay. Motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn?
Favor? Aye.
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 Aye.